Welcome back to a new installment here on the Three and Out podcast. Brett Schaub's always alongside Ben Pope, Mike Cicchetti. We are officially through week one of the NFL season. Week one, everybody always expects the same thing, and there's always surprises every single year, every single time. We always say, this team's going to beat that team, but there's always upsets. I mean, I think I counted I don't know, probably 5, 6 different upsets within just this week alone. So a lot of overreactions on Twitter, just to say
hmm
the least as well. But why don't we kick into a lot of the stories that happened this past Sunday and throughout the entire first week, beginning with Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott has officially been ruled out for several weeks after he had surgery to fix a fracture in his hand that will keep his throwing hand immobile pretty much for the next, I believe it's 4 or 5 games, according to Jerry Jones, from what he told in the press conference. So Dak
Yeah,
Prescott he's out for some time, according
yeah,
to reports. So not sure how to interpret that and
The
what
the
he wants.
doctors are saying up to 2 months. Jerry is, as
yeah,
we've seen, going a little delusional.
Yeah.
It's likely close to 2 months.
yeah. The initial or when he got the surgery was 6 to 8 weeks,
Yeah.
and then Jerry Jones went on a sports station in Dallas and said he'll try to be back in 4 weeks. Which is like, why would you even try to put that pressure on him? You saw the fans were throwing garbage at him when he was leaving the field, which is, come on. But you're putting pressure on him when you're literally cutting his recovery time in half. He could take up to 8 weeks, and you're saying we'll try to get him back in four. The Dallas Cowboys don't have any real Super Bowl expectations this season, so I don't understand trying to rush him back when you don't have the team to compete, or I don't think they have the team to make a deep run.
So the difficult thing here is like I want to say that Dallas is like completely out of it, but without Dak and like bringing down to Cooper Rush for, I'm expecting 6 weeks at the very least. It might go until their bye week, which is like right in the middle. I think it's like week 9 or so. Um, they're kind of built pretty similarly now to the way that I'm at least viewing the Commanders and the Giants. They kind of live and die by their defenses each. Like they've each got their like assortment of weapons, and I think Carson Wentz probably offers way more than either Daniel Jones or Cooper Rush did. So it's a little bit uneven, but it's relatively the same thing. They're probably going to live and die by their pass rush and their ability to hold opponents to low scores. We saw that they were able to do decently well against the Bucks this past week, holding them to 19 points. Brady wasn't able to get into the end zone more than once, which is a real statement to say for Dallas, holding Tampa Bay to that. But yeah, I don't know if I can truly believe that they're out, but at the same time, it doesn't make me um, buying into Dallas at all. Like their offensive line is still weak. Their offense is still very much question marks all around. CeeDee Lamb, he got 11 targets, 2 catches out of that. That
Yeah,
goes to Dak Prescott partially, but that also goes to CeeDee Lamb. Like Noah Brown led their team of receptions this past game. That's not a good thing. Jalen Tolbert, my offensive rookie of the year, he was a healthy scratch. Don't know why, but he was. And Zeke and Pollard did not look explosive at all. It's a good Bucks run defense, but still, it's a real suspect situation in Dallas. But I don't think they should be completely eliminated from playoff contention just because of this.
I honestly don't see many expectations like you guys have said with the Cowboys. I mean, you look at the situation as a whole, the fact that I mean Ben just alluded to it, you have so many question marks on offense, and then your owner's turning around and putting this pressure on Dak Prescott to almost cut his recovery time in half to show up. Like to me, that doesn't make any sense because that's basically putting him in a situation to fail when he's already lacking the positions to succeed on offense to help do the job. I mean, Ben just mentioned Jalen Tolbert was a healthy scratch. Zeke and Tony Pollard were a little underwhelming in the first week. You were without Michael Gallup. CeeDee Lamb had 11 targets, 2 catches, as Ben mentioned as well. Like, to me, there's no point in rushing him if you're just going to put him in a position again to fail, if that makes sense. I'd much rather have Cooper Rush out there, who I know can stay healthy and understands the playbook. He's been there for years, and at least somewhat try to salvage what you have in the next 2 months and try to even make a wild card. But I don't have any expectations right now. But the one thing is for sure, I don't see them trying to rush Dak from coming back from this injury.
I'm interested to see, honestly, what their game approach is like in the next few games because Dak threw for 29 times. He dropped back just because the Bucks were really chewing up game clock with Leonard Fournette. He had 21 attempts on the ground. He was really efficient. He was honestly one of his best games on the ground as a Buccaneer. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if Zeke and Pollard probably get more opportunities than they did this past game. I know Zeke only got 10. I think Tony Pollard got under that. So I would expect them to be more reliant on the run game. So they might live and die based off how Zeke and Pollard do.
That's what I mentioned. I was going to say because of Cooper Rush being in, there'll be a lot more run dependent offensively. But does this clear the way for Philly to take this division? What do you guys think?
I wouldn't say so. I think, honestly, from what I saw out of Washington on Sunday, I'd say there's still a chance for them. I mean, you won your first game. That's a plus. And Jahan Dotson and Carson Wentz looked scary in that game. I know it was only 40 yards besides the 2 touchdowns that Dotson had, but those 2 touchdowns look pretty. So I'm kind of expecting a good chemistry between those two. And the defense looks somewhat solid against Jacksonville. So I'm not necessarily running the ship for Philly winning the division, but I can sort of see the case for it to be an early favorite.
This is the tough thing about like after week 1 because every single reaction is kind of an overreaction because it's one game. So you don't really, the teams haven't really settled in. Some teams who lost and upsets might turn around and look good, and that was only one game. It's one game, but you got to give it a few games and see. But after week 1, Dak being out half the year definitely doesn't help their case, especially with the weak offense this year.
Yeah. So moving right along here from the Cowboys, obviously the Cowboys weren't just the only team that disappointed throughout week 1. There were a lot of upsets, as we talked about earlier on, throughout this first week. I mean, just to name a few, the 49ers lost to Chicago, Titans lost to the Giants. There were so many of them. So just waging around you guys here, what would we sort of say was our biggest upset this week from everything that happened in the NFL?
Mine has to be the Broncos losing. It has to be. Like, I look at some of the other upsets. You see even Steelers and Bengals would be an upset. That I see as more of an anomaly because although Pittsburgh does have a strong defense, when are they? You can't get the greatest defense can't consistently get 5 takeaways in a game, multiple defensive stops. You know what I'm saying? So that's not logical long term. So that I don't put a lot of stock in the 49ers game either based on the weather situation. But the Seahawks beating the Broncos and having a decent hold on them for the whole game is was pretty tough, especially in Hackett's first game there, and the field goal decision at the end, which we all know about, was kind of a head scratcher, and he even mentioned it a few days later that he knows that they should have went forward with Russ, but you got to do what you got to do. You're 0-1, and the Seahawks are. I mean, Geno Smith looked decent, so I mean. That's got to be my upset of the week. I don't think anyone really expected, the Denver to go into Seattle and come out with a loss there.
Mine is less an upset, at least in my opinion, just because Mike and I view them so highly. But it's the Vikings beating Green Bay for me. And it's less of the nature of this being an upset game, quote unquote. But the Packers looked depressing on offense. They looked awful. They played with almost no energy. And it seemed like Minnesota was blowing them out this entire game. It was a 2-score game by game's end. It was a 23-7 final. But the way that the Green Bay offense played, you would have thought they were losing by 5 scores. They had absolutely no energy. It didn't help that the first play on offense that they had, Christian Watson hit absolute deep ball from Aaron Rodgers, 50-yard launch, and it goes straight through his hands. The offense looked absolutely pathetic after that. He did not get comfortable, honestly, until after the second half started. He had some good routes run between Romeo Doubs and some of the other receivers on end, but the only real chemistry that Aaron was able to display on offense was with his running backs, with A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, who both had really good games, but were kind of limited in the amount of touches that they got. I think they both got under, either had 15 or less touches. I think that needs to change if they're going to have some improvement on offense. I don't think they're going to be held to 7 points. They're way too good of a team. Aaron Rodgers is their quarterback. He is not going to have 0-for-1 games. And we saw this last year. They got absolutely blown out by the Saints in week 1. So maybe just that's not Matt LaFleur, Aaron Rodgers' strength is coming out in week 1. The defense didn't look that great either. They really had nothing to really stop Justin Jefferson. Jair Alexander was playing him both in zone and man-to-man. He said that he should be in coverage on him 100% of the time, but some of the times he had blown coverage, or some of the times the Packers had blown coverage on Jefferson was with Jair in coverage. So it's kind of a tough situation on both sides of the ball, and Green Bay just looked just sad, to be honest with you. They did not look like the juggernaut of a team that I saw last year. So less of an upset, but more of just a big disappointment from Green Bay in their loss to Minnesota.
I mean, just to put it into perspective, Devontae Adams had more receiving yards in a singular game with Derek Carr than any of the Packers receivers did combined with Aaron Rodgers, which I thought was still impressive on its own, but just goes to show the worth that Adam brings to an offense. But just moving right along, I'm agreeing with Mike here. I thought the biggest upset, honestly, was the Broncos-Seahawks game. Not just coming from, a resident Broncos fan, but as somebody who sort of just expected Russell Wilson to really control this game and to really show what this team is capable of on offense. But the Broncos were stepping on their foot every other play. You had 2 fumbles in the red zone, plus an opportunity to go for it on 4th down with 52 seconds left on the clock. Then you burn 30, call a timeout, and kick a 64-yard field goal. Like, to me, that just doesn't add up, especially when you're paying Russ almost $50 million a year to go out and do what he does best. To me, it didn't make sense. Not to mention the defense as well was playing very much off coverage on Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. I mean, I don't really notice a lot of instances where they were playing man-to-man, allowing Geno Smith to succeed the way that he did against this defense. So, I don't know. Maybe it's just an anomaly, but I did not see a lot of good things out of that game with play calling, and they're going to have to do something else to put some trust in Russ, to say the least.
And it's another thing to add on, not only with the end of the game, which blame it on Nathaniel Hackett 100%. Why wasn't Russell Wilson able to kind of put on his big boy pants and call the timeout himself? That's a little bit of a question I have. I don't know if there's maybe a little bit of a development there that he needs to become more of a leader over there. I know it's only been a couple months, but I feel like that's something where you saw like third-year quarterback Joe Burrow, third-year quarterback Justin Herbert, second-year quarterback Jalen Hurts, or third-year quarterback Jalen Hurts, excuse me. Like any of those guys, I feel like would be able to call the timeout. I don't know why Russ wasn't able to do that. Maybe it's just trying to put faith in his coach. Also, the penalty yards was absolutely disgusting. They gave up the most yards on penalty of any team in week 1. So that's not a way to beat a kind of mediocre team like Seattle. was just a really bad game overall by Denver.
Not impressed at all. We'll see if they can change things at home against Houston in week 2. Definitely an opportunity to do so. But moving right along here in our session, episode number 4 now on the year for us. Let's talk AFC, right? A lot of big things that we saw in the conference in the first week. Steelers won. You saw Jacksonville take the loss. Colts tied with Houston. But both teams who were projected to be number 1 in the conference really had standout wins in their opening games. Bills blew out the Rams, and the Chiefs absolutely murdered the Cardinals in Arizona in week 1. Mahomes threw for 5 touchdowns. So we understand it's only one game throughout the season, but these two teams looked almost equal in the amount of firepower that they had in both their games. So the question is, who's sort of the favorite out of week 1 in the AFC? Is it Kansas City or is it Buffalo? Ben, why don't you start us off?
I'm personally going to have to stick with Buffalo. I will say that between the two games, even though that the Bills arguably had the tougher opponent in the Rams, I was very much impressed with the Chiefs. They played phenomenal on both sides of the ball. But overall, the biggest thing that I've wanted to see from the Bills over the past few years is development of their pass rush. And we saw very clearly, you can blame a little bit on the loss of Andrew Whitworth and the deteriorating health of the Rams offensive line, but man, Von Miller and the crew looked phenomenal on the D-line for the Bills. And you know what you've got on the offense with Josh Allen and the rest of Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Devin Singletary, all those guys. Maybe a little bit of a concern was there if they weren't able to keep the same continuity on offense without Brian Dable. Seems like they're doing pretty well in that first game with the Rams, so I have a lot of confidence there. I thought they were probably the better team set up, but the Chiefs really impressed me, but I kind of have to stick with my gut and stick with the Bills.
Mike?
Yeah, I'm taking the Bills too. When you look at both teams at the surface, the Chiefs are like a new team. Mahomes has all weapons. The defense, half the starters have 3 years or less of experience. 3 of their starters are rookies on the defensive side of the ball. And I've been not raving, but I've been high on the Chiefs defense this season. The Bills have the chemistry on both sides of the ball. Josh Allen, Singletary, like Ben mentioned, Singletary, Diggs, Gabe Davis, and then defensively, you know what you have. You have the best defense in the league last year, and I think they're going to hold up to that standard as well by adding Von Miller. So I can't really go against the Bills right now, although not taking anything away from the Chiefs, because the Chiefs, they still have a really good team, and they can beat any team on any given night, just like the Bills can.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I thought you hit it on the nail, Mike. If you look at the Chiefs right now as a whole, completely new squad, right? One of your starting corners was Trent McDuffie, who you just drafted in the draft back in April. I mean, you have 3 new receivers between Smith-Schuster, Valdez-Scantling, and Sky Moore to complement Mecole Hardman. So, whole new squad, and it's only 1 week, so you don't know how they're going to develop. But I'm still going with Buffalo here. I think they just have way too much experience not to keep them as the favorite. But if you just look at it as a whole, Bills filled the holes they needed. They came out and stomped on the Super Bowl champions, the Rams, and I don't know. It seems like a unanimous pick here for Buffalo.
Yep.
Moving right along here now that we've sort of settled that favorite, let's go back to the NFC. And a particular development that sort of surprised a few people in week 1. Even though there was some heavy conditions over in Soldier Field in Chicago, which had a factor into how the game played out, Trey Lance still didn't impress a lot of people in his first game as the 49ers starter against the Bears. Sort of struggled to get the ball out of the pocket. A lot of pressure coming his way between the Bears pass rush of Robert Quinn and company, and just didn't really look like himself. The 49ers offense wasn't really firing the way they did last year to start with Jimmy Garoppolo. So even though it's one game, it still sort of raises the question, if this happens every week, how long do we expect Trey Lance to survive as the 49ers starting quarterback?
I think he'll be fine. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't put a lot of stock into that game whatsoever. It's his first year as a starter, even though he started a handful of games last year. Wasn't overly impressive in those either, but he has full keys to the offense this season. And just to put it simply, I don't put a lot of stock into that game. I I trust him. I trust Shanahan to be able to work with him in improvements. He was without Kittle as well, and he will be without Elijah Mitchell now for what 2 months, I believe. He'll get his offense back with George Kittle, who is a big piece of that. George Kittle and Debo and Brennan Ayuk, hopefully, emergent year this season. I'm still in on Trey Lance this year. No wavering from me.
Ben?
I'm a little bit more concerned, and it's mostly because of what Mike mentioned, the Elijah Mitchell injury. That was something of a safety blanket I saw for Trey Lance. They could be very much a run-heavy offense. You saw Lance had 13 attempts on the ground rushing this game, and I thought him and Elijah Mitchell could be a really good duo of trying to get like 20, 25 attempts per game between the two of them. You could have some really good efficiency on the ground. Now without Mitchell, he suffered a MCL injury. He's going to be out for close to 2 months. Now you're going to have a rotation of like Jeff Wilson, Tyrion Davis-Price. They just signed Marlon Mack to their practice squad. They've got a couple other guys that are probably lower on the depth chart. That's not as great. Jeff Wilson's been able to kind of fill in for a few years now, kind of as the second or third string running back. But that also means that Deebo Samuel is going to have a lot of pressure on him being more of a runner like he was at the end of last year, which I don't think that created much, security in that offense and made Jimmy Garoppolo have less of a set target share between him, Kittle, and Ayuk. Now you just have Ayuk and Kittle to shoot to. And Kittle still hasn't been in practice as of a recording now. So if they're going into next week, which they're playing Seattle, we just saw them upset I believe, a good Denver team. It might be a situation where they start 0-2 just because they don't have too many guys healthy. And I don't think that's Trey Lance's fault. Focusing on Trey Lance here, the question, I don't think he'll lose the job. If he does, it'll be like very late into the season, and it'll just be like if they're in the playoffs, Jimmy Garoppolo's starting game. I don't think Trey Lance loses his starting job. I don't think that would be smart by the organization. I don't think that would help Trey Lance's development in any sort of way. It's kind of live or die by him. And he's a good player. Like, he's completing less than 50% of his throws. But unlike a certain player that's done that, cough, cough, Jalen Hurts, this kid is able to grip it and rip it deep downfield. He hit Brandon Ayuk literally on the first drive for like a 40-yard play. So they are able to make big chunk plays that kind of keeps them alive in this game. Even without a solidified run game, I think Lance should be fine. It's a stout Niners team. They have one of the best rosters, not only in the NFC and just in the NFL in general. I have a lot of confidence in them.
Yeah, I'm honestly on the same wavelength as Ben. Was I concerned with his play and the amount of safety netting he went to with that run game? Yes. But I think it's honestly what you're going to see within the first 2 weeks, especially considering this is something that's foreign to him. He's had a whole training camp as the number one starter, but he hasn't gotten that, obviously, regular season game experience yet. So it's going to be something that Kyle Shanahan's going to try to lean for him a little bit more and sort of try to ease him into the style of play that the 49ers want. But I have no concern at all. This kid's got plenty of raw talent. And I think in a dry scenario like Seattle, I think you're going to see a lot different of a player in Trey Lance. So I'm not really too concerned. The one thing in that game, though, and I will go slightly deferring from Trey Lance for a second, that really did impress me was the play from Justin Fields. Coming in with an offensive line that, quite honestly, didn't have any expectations at all at how it would form and weapons that we didn't know how were going to work. He came in and impressed a lot of people. His play outside of the pocket and to find people downfield was very strong. He stayed confident and he allowed his defense to do their job on the other side of the football. So I got to give props to Justin Fields, and I was very impressed in his game one performance.
Yeah, shout out to Justin Fields and the Bears because nobody expected them to win this game, and they came out and did just that. So,
yeah, with that, we move on to our last topic of discussion here, moving forward to the other division in the NFC, and that's the NFC South. We almost saw another upset in the first window of games on Sunday, and that was in the Saints and Falcons game. However, the Saints were able to come back in the fourth quarter and win on a game-winning field goal and take down the Atlanta Falcons 27-26. They now play the Bucs this upcoming week in week 2. The team that's on my back right now, but guys, the Saints obviously looked really good in that second half against the Falcons. If they're able to take down a veteran team like the Buccaneers and Tom Brady, who looked pretty decent against Dallas, do we consider them a serious contender in the AFC or the NFC, I should say? Excuse me.
100%.
We saw
100%.
that.
I think they are. I think they're contenders without a win this week. The Bucs are a Super Bowl favorite this year. They beat them twice. The Saints beat the Bucs twice last year, and I just think the Saints are. They just have pieces at every position. They're such a strong team. They just really have a lot of question marks when it comes to Jameis Winston. We haven't really seen him in a huge role with the Saints in terms of longevity. His first year there, he played a game or two or started a game or two and came in different packages. Last year, he played 5-6 games, looked good, had good stats, but unfortunately got hurt. I think this is a year. They have Michael Thomas back, Chris Olave, Jarvis Landry, who had a really good game. Offensive line is strong. I think Taysom Hill is going to be used a lot in this offense. I think he is going to be used a lot in this offense, and I feel like Brett's saying that because that's such a Brett thing. But just seeing how they used him in the first half, I think he's going to be like that little security blanket.
He played when Jameis was hurt. That's when he came in.
No, early on in the game though. Not past.
I know
when he was rushing.
Jameis got taken out for a couple drives, and Taysom ran it. That's when he did.
No, beforehand though.
Before Jameis got hurt, there were a few plays where they had Jameis on the outside as a receiver, and they ran
lined up outside.
Yeah, they ran wildcat plays with Taysom.
And defensively, strong unit. They had a lot of additions in the offseason. So I don't know. This goes into my being super, super high on the Saints still.
So, I think with a win or without a win, I think they can win the division. I don't know how much I value them in the whole scheme of the NFC, just because I'm not too sold on Tampa in general, so I'm not big on the South. The biggest thing I want to see from the Saints, I want to see how they are able to use the running game, because they didn't use it very much at all in the Falcons game. Alvin Kamara got very little usage both in the run game and in the passing game. I got to see a little bit more of them, because if Tampa is going to keep the approach that they did against Dallas, which I think is going to be Brady isn't going to drop back 45 times each game. If they are playing a good pass rush, they're going to let Leonard Fournette rush 20 plus times. I think that's a decent expectation to have of the Bucs, just because can't have Brady passing for that much at his age consistently. You got to give him a little bit of a rest, give him a little bit of a break. If the Saints are able to establish a solid run game in their offense, you saw it literally in the third and fourth quarter that they were able to utilize their pass game very well with Jarvis, Michael Thomas, 2 touchdowns. He had a good game. And Chris Olave as well. He had the 2-point conversion to get them within the field goal. So, yeah, their defense kind of came out shaky, but they came out like really great in the second half. And to go with kind of their pass game and everything, when Jameis got good protection, they were really efficient on offense. Like, it was crazy good in the second half. So I think between their run game and just keeping Jameis protected, if they're able to do those two things properly, I'll consider them a contender without even winning against the Bucs. But I think it'd be really nice if they're able to win against Tampa Bay, because I think they'll kind of be exposing what I consider personally somewhat of a fraud team.
In the Bucs?
Yeah, like I think they're like I project them to win the division.
Yep.
But I think it's just because they're a weak division and they're quarterbacked by Tom Brady. Like, their O-line is weaker. They just lost Chris Godwin to another hamstring injury. So now you've got Russell Gage or Julio Jones as your wide receiver 2. Julio looked great. He got 5 targets though. And Russell Gage, they brought him in on a 3-year deal. I think he didn't get a look until the fourth quarter. They really ran the ball based on Fournette.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you would blame it on the Dallas offense rather than the Bucs defense playing really well. Even though I think their run game is still very solid. They're able to protect the run game very well, but their secondary still isn't the greatest to me. So, yeah, I don't know. I think if the Saints are able to win this game, they would kind of expose Tampa Bay in a way that, yeah, they're not as good as they were the past 2 years.
Brady, I don't think Brady has beaten the Saints since he's been part of the Bucs in the regular season.
In the regular season, yeah.
He's 1-4 against them since he's been, because I know they beat them in the playoffs the year they went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I think that's the only win he's had against them.
Yeah.
But honestly, just to add really quick, I think with a loss too, I honestly think the Saints are still a contender. If I'm going to be straightforward, I still think this is Sean Payton's rodeo without Sean Payton there. I think Dennis Allen has done a remarkable job replicating what Sean Payton has done with just his own little spin on it. And I can see so many instances of how Sean Payton ran that offense just under Dennis Allen now and under that regime that he sort of kept internally with the Saints organization. So I think they'll be okay in the division. I think they're going to put themselves in a position to get a wild card. But as Ben mentioned, I really don't see their whole value yet in the conference just because of all the other high-powered offenses and honestly teams in the conference. So it's something to take with a grain of salt. But again, I think they're still a strong contender.
And that's what really sold me on Sean Payton leaving and Dennis Allen stepping into the head coach role, him keeping the same offensive staff and letting them basically do what they do, and he focuses on the defense. I think that was a really smart decision by him.
Yeah. So with that, we wrap up our main topics here in the 3 and Out podcast, and now it's time to move into our pick'ems for this week, our game of the week, and our stand sessions. Yes, the stand sessions are back. But before we get to those, we move to our game of the week. We each picked another game, which if I can speak some English, which we are paying attention to this week in week 2 of the NFL season as sort of one to watch out for. And so I will hand it to Ben to start things out here. What are we keeping an eye on here in week 2?
Oh, man, the Miami Dolphins are going to be on here. It's 2 weeks in a row. They're my pick here against the Baltimore Ravens. This is a team that honestly played very solid against New England this past week. I think New England did not put their best foot forward, but I don't think that gave any hesitation to Miami. They were playing very well on both sides of the ball. I thought we saw a very solid game from Tua. I was really impressed with how they were able to utilize both Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle didn't get many looks until near the end of the second quarter, but Tyreek Hill was getting target after target. He looked phenomenal. He was constantly on the move. And the usage of Chase Edmonds was another thing that really brightened me up. But I think their matchup against the Ravens is going to be very interesting to see because Baltimore kind of got an easier matchup with the Jets. Just looked abysmal on offense. And Lamar was kind of able to cruise. He didn't have a true run game supporting him in that game. He had the support of 3 passing touchdowns to Devin Duvernay and Rashad Bateman combined. I'm honestly interested to see how Miami is able to keep up with this team. Both teams' run game isn't phenomenal, so I think we'll be able to see the kind of the matchup between Tua and Lamar. And I honestly think that Miami is able to pull this one out. I have them probably winning this game. I didn't love the way that Baltimore played. Just the lack of any start of a run game between Kenyon Drake, Mike Davis, if I'm missing a name there. Like, it was kind of a combination between those two guys and a few others. J.K. Dobbins did fully practice as of Wednesday when we're recording here. So hopefully if he's able to come back, that kind of spurs some stuff there for the Ravens. But I think this will be another game for Tua to kind of prove his haters, quote unquote. And I think this will be a really good game to see. I think this is honestly a matchup between two kind of fringe playoff teams kind of fighting for a spot, at least the way that I'm projecting things. And yeah, I'm really interested. This is two competitive teams, and I think that we'll see a really good matchup.
Mike?
My game, not a surprise whatsoever, is Bucks at Saints on at 1 p.m. Who would I be if I didn't pick the Saints? It's their first home game of the year against the Bucks, and I think this is you really don't know how to gauge as a team overall by looking at it kind of as a casual viewer against the Atlanta Falcons that come from behind victory in the last quarter. How do we really, gauge this team? I think they're going to come out, have a statement win, and really put the whole league on notice that okay, they could be something dangerous here. Like Ben mentioned earlier when we were just recently talking about this, Bucks kind of. I still have the Bucks winning the division, but Saints are not letting him get a win in the regular season. That will hold up. So I have the Saints beating the Buccaneers in week 2.
All right. I guess that just leaves me. I have the second of 2 Monday night games as my game of the week. It's the Vikings and Eagles in Philadelphia. The Eagles open up at home in week 2 to take on a Minnesota Vikings team that is coming off a very hot victory against the Green Bay Packers. I'm sort of intrigued to see how Philadelphia is going to play Justin Jefferson. Against the Lions, they sort of had a very much scheme that was sort of brought in variety. You didn't see a whole lot of man-to-man with Amon-Ra St. Brown and DJ Chark. You sort of just saw them do their own thing and just play tight on them when you sort of had that offset coverage. But you look at the run game as well. Didn't really impress me that much in Philadelphia. They sort of let DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams run all over them. You saw DeAndre Swift had a score. Jamal Williams had multiple scores at the goal line. And I'm sort of intrigued to see how they're going to handle this Philadelphia offense that runs strictly through those 3 running backs plus Jalen Hurts. It's sort of a mix and match, and you don't know what you're going to get out of Nick Sirianni, so that'll be intriguing. But I think the biggest thing you have to watch out for is how they're going to play Justin Jefferson, right? Someone who we've mentioned before, the comparison to the Cooper Kupp style of target share that he gets and how he basically breaks coverage, whether it's man-to-man or zone. You really don't know how you have to play him. It's sort of just a feel thing. And it's going to be on Darius Slay to really step up and be that guy to the occasion to cover Justin Jefferson in this case. I actually have the Eagles winning this game against the Vikings in Philadelphia. I think you're going to see a really productive game out of Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia defense as well. I think it's going to be a very close one. And it's going to be one of the more impressive games to watch this week, but I have the Eagles beating the Vikings at home.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how the Vikings secondary holds up because this is the first time they're going up against Philadelphia's kind of fire offense. They went against Green Bay last week, which, those receivers are don't want to get disrespectful, but they're not to the level of
Mr. 1K.
AJ
right.
1K.
AJ 1K and D Smitty, the Slim Reaper, and Dallas Goddard. We'll see. We'll see how the Vikings do. I think this will be a game where you can really gauge defensively how they will play as a whole unit throughout this year. This game will be the telltale one.
All right, so we have picked our games of the week. It is now time for, guess what? The Stan Sessions, our first one of the season. Ben is ready to rock. We've all got our stands picked out and ready to go. Ben, since you're ready to go here and biting at the bit, who is your stand from week one?
Well, first of all, for any new viewers, let's explain what the stand session is here, Mr. Shabs, instead of just jumping right into the pool, shall we? So our stand sessions is Brett, Mike, and myself. We all picked two guys that we thought had really phenomenal weeks that are our quote-unquote stands. And my first stand is, oh my goodness, he did me such a favor. He crushed the dreams of the Titans. Saquon Barkley. Oh my God. He
Good pick.
was phenomenal this past week. Very good efficiency for Saquon. And that's such a good thing to see because you've seen him get a heavy workload when he was working with Eli Manning in that first year with Danny Dimes. But man, he was great on the ground. 18 carries for 164 yards and a touchdown. Did get a couple catches as well. 6 catches. Wow, that actually surprised me. 6 catches for 30 yards. I'm pretty sure he was pacing them in target. So he was the focal point of this offense. He is pretty much the reason that they were in this game to begin with. And one of the reasons that they were able to win it. He was phenomenal. I think the hopes and dreams that myself, maybe fantasy football managers had, and hopefully Giants fans had as well, that Saquon is finally healthy. He's back and recovered from his ACL tear. I think it's here. I'm really excited to see what he's able to do in this new Brian Daboll offense. Saquon Barkley is my first stand.
Play KT, though.
Give him some snaps, please. They ran him twice and no targets?
Yeah, no bueno.
What are they? Matt Patricia with Kendrick Bourne?
Well,
that was embarrassing, by the way.
That whole game is just embarrassing as a whole for New England.
He got 2 snaps, Kendrick Bourne. One of them caught a 42-yard pass. Then they benched him. Pause on that. We'll go to Mike's stand.
We're going to keep with the trend that I've been following this whole episode. My first stand is the one and only Michael Thomas.
Let's go.
Slant boy.
Love it, slant boy. Slant boy.
Michael Thomas, 57 yards on 5 tuds, on 5 catches. 2 tuds on Brett's favorite cornerback, AJ Terrell. Manhandled him in the red zone and didn't really like that whole Saints team. Didn't really emerge until the last quarter. But when he did, it's Unleash MT, and I am so ready for that Jameis MT connection. Finally, Michael Thomas has a quarterback with an arm that can throw more than a 15-yard pass, so you're going to see him in a lot more offensive. You're going to see his expanded route tree now, other than the slant routes, which will be nice to see, and he will still take the league by storm and win Comeback Player of the Year en route of doing so. Michael Thomas is my first stand.
Oh, I love Slant Boy. Oh, great pick. Great pick.
I actually posted a picture of Michael Thomas on my Instagram story.
And I also posted a video.
And Brett swiped up and wrote Slant Boy with the purple devil emoji marking. And I opened it and did not respond because we do not respond to the criticism of Slant Boy. That is disrespect, and he is much more than Slant Boy. Brett, thank you very much.
He was showing you support.
Well, I'll have you know, Mike Cicchetti, that Michael Thomas is also my first stan.
Oh my god.
Ooh.
Big fan of Michael Thomas in this game.
Oh,
I
just wait
call
for
him
Cade
Slant
York
Boy
coming
just
next.
for fun. Huh?
No, keep going, please.
I call him Slant Boy just for the fun. But honestly, I was genuinely impressed on how Michael Thomas came back and handled himself in the red zone. Him and Jameis just sort of had that connection in the second half that honestly we haven't seen out of Michael Thomas in years. Quite frankly, first of all, because we haven't seen him, but second of all,
Literally years, right?
yeah, literally years. And he didn't really do much of Drew Brees towards the end of Drew Brees' career. Um, but Michael Thomas, I think, is officially back if he continues this trend and stays healthy. It was quite an impressive tout that he did on AJ Terrell. And you know how much of an AJ Terrell fan I am. So I am a Michael Thomas stan.
That's nice.
Well, Mike, you kind of stole my thunder. It was my secret weapon. I'm a Cade York stan.
He picked a kicker. No, he didn't.
I'm only picking a kicker. First of all, I want to show some love to the Browns Panthers game. One of the most underrated games of the week. It was really solid on both ends. I was really impressed by the Browns run game and but Cade York. First of all, he was one of the only kickers that didn't blow a game this week. My God. Looking at you, Evan McPherson, looking at you, Rodrigo Blankenship, looking at all y'all. Rodrigo lost his job.
Yeah, that's actually stupid.
Well,
he also didn't play 3/4 of the year last year.
All right, well, this is my stand session. We're talking about Cade York.
Okay, fine.
Excuse me.
Cade, okay. First of all, 58-yard field goal, 8 seconds left to win the game. That's pretty good. To shut Baker Mayfield up, another good thing. Third good thing, did you watch that kick?
Dude,
This man kicked a curveball around one of the linebackers going. That ball, if it went straight, it was kicked normally. That would have been blocked. They said it on the broadcast. I watched it back. That would have been blocked if it was a normal kick. This man, Cade York, curved the ball.
He got some torque on it.
Had some beautiful torque. Also, weird name, so I give him the credit right there. Hey, man, the Browns kind of impressed me in week 1. Cade York, you're on the list. Welcome to the stand session.
I love it. Mike?
Do you have a kicker too?
Me?
Yeah.
Actually, no, I don't.
That hesitancy at first made me think he's got a kicker.
I thought he had a kicker.
It brings tears to my eyes with joy that it was somebody besides me that actually picked a kicker this time.
Honestly, it was because I put all my energy into Saquon. But go ahead.
My last stand of week 1. New faces, new places. I got Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack.
You call him Kahlua? Kahlua brownie? Jeez.
Wow.
Nice ice cream.
Khalil Mack. Beautiful game. Beautiful game for the Los Angeles Chargers. People were calling him washed up. People were saying, oh, he's getting older. He's hurt, injured. He came in, first game with the Chargers, 3 sacks, forced fumble, 5 pressures, 3 tackles for loss. He was a demon. Him and Joey Bosa, I believe 4.5 sacks combined. They are going to be a scary pass rush duo this year. And looking back at the trade, the Chargers got him for a steal. Chargers defense is not at full strength yet. They're still without J.C. Jackson, who at this point is still questionable for the Thursday night game, which would be today, as you are listening to it. But Khalil, I mean, insane game from him. And this is what Justin Herbert needed. He needed a defense. The defense won him a game, which was weird to think about because all last year the defense wasn't able to finish the job for him. The Chargers with a competent defense is scary. So, yeah, Khalil Mack.
I also have a pass rusher. I'm a Von Biller stan.
Oh,
goodbye,
this
everyone.
was
Oh,
written
Vaughn.
on the walls. How did
Oh,
we not
Vaughn.
get this one, bro?
King Von Biller. Oh, 2 sacks.
You say King Vaughn?
Yeah, Von
That's
Biller.
crazy.
Von
R.I.P. King Vaughn.
It was either
Biller
this or
had-
Amon Ra. So
Oh, Brett's so predictable.
My honorable mention's Marcus Mariota. I'll get into that in a second. But Von Biller, 2 sacks.
Honorable mentions in the stand session? That's
Oh,
a
yeah.
first.
Oh, yeah. A lot of stands in week 1, but 2
Fair.
sacks. Had a lot of pressures on Matthew Stafford. He honestly, he looked just like his old self back in Denver before he left for Los Angeles. But I was very impressed on how he handled himself and how he meshed into the scheme for Leslie Frazier and the Bills defense. Honestly thought he was the missing piece that they needed, and they showed it Thursday night. So I am a Von Biller stan. Also, shout out Mariota. I know they blew the second half, but first half looked great. So shout out Mariota.
So I won't lie. He didn't look that bad. When you said that he looked like his former self, I thought you were talking about Mariota in Tennessee. I was like, I don't know if that was too impressive.
Nah.
Aside from the one, like he threw a pick, but it went back to him and he dove in against the Chiefs.
Jeez.
Albeit very fair. He looked really good in that Arthur Smith offense.
That's
like,
what
I
I'm
know
saying.
they didn't do anything in the second half, but like
He succeeded really well in that RPO kind of style where he sort of he basically was given the keys to make the decision. Either you can keep it yourself or you can see if you can gunsling it to try to get it to Olamide Zaccheaus. I mean, it's either that or Pitts.
Drake London dog.
London was also involved, but I feel like Zaccheaus was also a big component.
Didn't Drake London lead receiver that game?
Yeah, he did. And Pitts at 7 targets.
Fair enough, but I don't know.
I think they're going to be.
Are you forgetting his fumble in there too? Good old Olonimus Zaccheaus. Oh.
Jeez. But anyways,
I think Drake London and Kyle Pitts are going to be a nice big duo for.
They're going to be so good, and it's going to be with Desmond Ridder. God,
not if Mariota keeps it up.
Even if he does, I would be sad.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is why we say every reaction in week 1 is an overreaction. So we'll see how this
is true. Tis true.
See how this plays out. But
it would have been an overreaction. My honorable mention would have been Carson Wentz. We didn't want that.
We did. We still love. I still love Carson Wentz.
See, I didn't want to pick Carson Wentz that bad that I picked a kicker.
That's sad.
But we love our kickers on the stand sessions.
You do. Brett does.
I do. Oh, you know I love my kickers.
Nobody else has picked a kicker. I don't think. Maybe I have last year. But it's you. It was like a weekly thing. You made it a point to pick a kicker.
Daniel Carlson, Graham Gano.
No, Daniel Carlson was like the main one. He was like whenever I hear Daniel Carlson or see him, I think of you, Brett.
That's how it should be. The MVP in my heart.
Weird question, but you see a player or watch a player and you think of, because I see Daniel Carlson, I think of you. Von Miller, for some reason, I think of you. Mm-hmm. Like with Ben, I think of every time I see AJ Brown, Ben's face pops into my head.
For you, Mike, it's Derwin James. If I see Derwin James, I think of you.
Really?
If I see Jameis Winston, I think of you.
Good. We love that.
You
see
Mike
the fleur-de-lis of the
I
Saints.
Think of Brett.
Yeah, that's crazy.
What is it?
When he sees Mike McDaniel, he thinks of you. Yeah, that was crazy.
That's messed up. Disrespect.
I'm sitting there.
I said it was a compliment.
That's a compliment. What are you saying?
I know.
I'm sitting on the couch at home watching the game. My dad looks over at me. He goes, "That looks like that kid you went to the combine with, Brett." So I said, "What?" I look up. It's Mike McDaniel sitting on the screen. I go, "No, I said he just has dark hair and glasses." No comparison.
That's like saying, "Oh, Ben, you look like Aaron Hernandez."
Well,
that's a little That's a little. I don't know if you can say that one.
Someone told me that 2 weeks ago. You know it.
Well,
I
we
don't know
know.
if you could say that one.
All right. So I think with
Oh,
that note,
gosh.
we're going to wrap up here on the 3 and Out podcast. Be sure to catch us on all of our services that we provide for streaming, especially YouTube. Check out our latest episode on YouTube on Thursday, which you're seeing go live now as of this recording. Also, check us out on Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, wherever you find yourself listening to a podcast these days. But signing off for now, Ben Pope, Mike Cicchetti. My name is Brett Schaubs. Take care and fresh air. We'll see you soon.